The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Good evening to those of you watching on YouTube and iRacing Live, and welcome to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV. Tonight we are live from Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Las Vegas, Nevada for the third race of 36 in the 2017 RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. I am James Pike, and I am joined in the booth tonight by my colleague Randy Cheneth and our producer in the truck, Mr. Cisco Scaramuzza, here to bring you all the action from Sin City and Randy. Fun track, tricky track, I think, especially with the way this track surface has evolved over progressive builds. You know, when it came out 2010, 2011, you got a pretty standard repave fast track. Really quick, really easy on the tires, but as the surfaces age and have the builds have progressed, it's changed. It's developed some characteristics, and I think how these drivers manage those characteristics is going to be very key as we watch this race unfold tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic race to watch, I think. Las Vegas has always generated some good racing. It's one of those tracks where you really can make both sides of the racetrack work. You can make passes happen down low. You can make them happen up high as well. And I think the one thing that's going to be really interesting is that this is going to be the first time we see these A cars at Vegas in this new low downforce trim. I'm really excited to see how these cars race here this evening.
Definitely have to note that the new packages came online this past week with the updates to the sim. So, take a look at our point standings here through two races. It's been all Aegis Motorsports at the front of the field. Dylan Jones leads by virtue of his victory last weekend at Atlanta. Trevor Roppolo got the win at Daytona, second in points. And David Washington in P3 been right up there in the top five for it seems like the entirety of this young series. So, Randy, I think part of the trick for everybody else is figuring out how do you break up the Aegis domination that's happened at the front of the field so far this year.
That's really, a difficult question to ask, but Dylan C. Jones and Trevor Roppolo, they already have them, as well as David Washington. Three of those guys already have themselves a relatively comfortable gap to the rest of their competition. Those three drivers in points separated by only 10. Then you have to go 13 points out of third place to get to fourth. So right now, those Aegis Motorsports guys not only looking good on the track, looking fantastic in the points as well. Got themselves a nice little buffer, which in the first couple rounds of the season, that's really all you can ask for.
Also of note, still 2 minutes to go here in qualifying, but Roppolo leads the field so far with the fastest time. So might see another Aegis driver on pole here in just a few moments. But other thing I think of, when I think of Las Vegas, especially as we get late into runs during green flag situations, is how you manage corner exit, especially out of turn 2, because if you run that high lane, it's much easier than you would think to overdrive the exit and find yourself pancaked to the wall. I think drivers are going to have to be careful of how hard they push on these old tires, how much they want to get up to the wall. You can Kyle Larson it if you want to, but if you do it too hard for too long, sometimes you end up paying the price.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you can run up high, and if you push yourself a little too hard coming out of 2, yeah, it's really easy to catch that outside retaining wall. Also easy at this racetrack to get loose coming off of 4, at least that's something I've personally always struggled with here, especially as you get deeper and deeper into the run. I know in some older builds that even the tri-oval used to be somewhat treacherous on the older version of the tire model. I haven't run this new build yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how this, especially with the lower downforce, that smaller rear spoiler, I really think, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some cars getting pretty silly loose coming off of 4.
And I think if we're talking about turn 4 here in Vegas, we'd be remiss not to mention the fact that this pit road is very difficult to get on. It kind of bends into the front straightaway. It's not a clean, straight break like you find at most tracks, and that was designed, I think, to try and make it a little bit easier for the drivers, but as we've seen it play out in practice since they reconfigured this place 10 years ago, it's actually made it more difficult to get down onto pit road here than at a lot of the other tracks in the schedule. And we could see some drivers get hit with some speeding penalties before we're done.
Not only that, just the way you transition off the banking is very, very tricky as well, especially when we see green flag pit stops. I mean, I've already mentioned it a few times, but this track will wear these tires out. Trying to transition off that banking while being well and trying to be quick on the brakes, really pushing the limits, trying to not get that speeding penalty, though, at the same time. Wouldn't be surprised to see someone actually loop it around trying to get onto pit road, nonetheless speed. Maybe even see someone miss that braking point or miss the entry cone and end up in the grass altogether.
Well, we'll have to watch those storylines and more and see how things play out. But it's time to go to your starting grid for tonight's race, and Trevor Rapolo was able to hang on to the pole. So Aegis Motorsports with another pole position in this young Full Throttle Cup Series season for 2017. He's joined by the 27 of Ashton Crowder, poles their last weekend at Atlanta. Carl Shedd will start from the 3rd position, joined on the outside of Road 2 by the number 44 of Brandon Bowie. Joseph Tice will start the 5 car from the 5th position. He'll be joined on the outside of row 3 by Adam Benefiel, who starts from 6th. AJ Browning will kick off from the 7th position, and Dylan Jones, last week's winner and the points leader, starts from 8th. Jeff Ward begins this race from the 9th position, and David Comstock rounds out your top 10.
Getting outside of your top 10 here, row number 6, Galen Gidman on the inside in the 11th spot with DeSelvin and Nelson Rivera in 12th. Row number 7, Michael Waters with Kyle Tarasca on the outside of him. Row 8, Stephanie Lacente with CJ LeVere. Row 9, Scott Simley as well as Dwayne Vincent with Shane Ewing as well as Austin Cooper rounding out your top 20.
21st position will go to the 24 of Nick Silver. Thomas George starts from 22nd. Seth Foudy will begin from the 23rd position. Corbin Hemstreet from 24th. Doug Roth starts 25th this evening. Greg Evans, 26th. David Washington begins from 27th. Sean Casto will start 28th. Jose Gonzalez boots the meatball machine in 29th. Steve Gottschalk starts from 30th.
31st tonight, we have Kevin Linden, Ross Cotto in 32nd, 33rd, Jeffrey Ford, 34th, we have Sean Boundy, 35th, Bobby Wetzel, 36th, Eric Arnold, Douglas Wyatt, 37th, 38th, Lionel Castillo, Stefan Marinac, 39th, 40th, Scott Stenzel, 41st, John Abbott, 42nd, Glenn Campbell, and rounding out the 43 field car tonight is Jason Lester.
So there's your starting lineup for tonight's race, and we will move to your track facts. Going to go for 125 laps around this 1.5 mile facility for 187.5 miles in total. You've got 20 degrees of banking in the turns with 9 degrees of banking on the front stretch and back stretch. This track is, I think, deceptively fast is the best way to put it. It isn't quite as wide as, say, in Atlanta or California, but your speeds are not too far off from what you see at those two tracks, Randy.
Yeah, it is a very, very fast 1.5 miler here, especially with the way the tri-oval section is really configured. It's a little bit straighter than some of the other racetracks these guys race to, but the track overall a little bit more narrow. That's going to make it harder to race, but you can still make those top sides work. Going to be an exciting 125 laps of action tonight.
Have it for you here, all on LSRTV as the pace car comes through turn 4 and gets ready to make the hard left turn onto pit road. Trevor Rapolo will lead the field to the green flag here in just a few moments. Pace car's off, there he goes. Rapolo goes, and the green flag is out at Las Vegas. He gets a very, very good start. Carl Shedd comes in right behind, looking like you've got more cars side by side in the back there. It's going to be Joseph Tice underneath there as they go into turn 1.
That inside row is very, very strong coming to the green here tonight. Austin Crowder, who you saw start, or excuse me, Ashton Crowder started on the outside of that front row, dropped quickly back to third. Now that 45 car, Carl Shedd fighting on the inside for the race lead through 3 and 4 for the first time as they come off of corner number 4. They're going to drive all the way up to that outside retaining wall. In the 45, he plays a little bit careful here, gives Trevor more than enough room, just playing it safe on this first lap. And because of that, the 9 will lead lap number 1. How will that 45 be able to fight on the inside through 1 and 2?
Got very, very good speed there coming off the bottom, but you get the run off the top side here, especially with fresh tires. That should be enough to allow Ropperlow to clear. So Trevor Ropperlow will hang on to that first spot. Shed will stay in second. It's then Ashton Crowder in third, and you've got Brandon Bowie in fourth. Have to go back to about fifth and sixth and seventh there. Tice is still there, and then you've got Dylan Jones and A.J. Browning running side by side as they come through the tri-oval into turn one.
Dylan Jones currently getting assaulted by A.J. Browning. They run through corners number 1 and 2, and see a lot of these cars are fighting and being able to use both sides of this racetrack. The outside is definitely looking stronger coming off of 2 and coming off of 4, but I think you can still make moves happen down on that inside. I think the upper lane is still where you want to be, but it's going to be interesting to see how these lanes evolve over the course of this first run.
Everybody's managed to straighten themselves out very quickly here, down into one groove all the way back to about 10th. It's Galen Gibman and David Comstock. Those are your first 2 cars that are side by side for position, fighting for things here on the back straightaway, but everybody's got to kind of wound up at the front here. I get the sense guys are just trying to hold it steady, hold it even, and start trying to click off laps and get a good green flag running here before this first set of pit stops, Randy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. No real point to go out here and start pushing too hard just yet. Of course, while the field is stacked up, it can be really tempting to try to force yourself side by side and try to get some moves done. But for the most part, everyone really running just single file, couple side by side battles deeper in the field. And you mentioned at the top of the show that a couple of drivers might be able to run that upper lane right against the wall. Only car I've really been seeing doing that to success is actually the 94 of Galen Gidman. This lap, of course, he makes goes to a little bit more traditional line, back down towards that white line, but the first few laps of this motor race, he was right up against that wall in 1 and 2.
You know, half of it was he was out there, the other half of it I think is he was stuck there and was just trying to find his way in. I think what's interesting to me is that we're already seeing from Ropperlow all the way on back, everybody's coming into turn 1 in sort of that low middle groove, not necessarily sticking it on the white line, only really doing that down in 3 and 4. I think it says something about the kind of corner entrances that you have here. It's not the same going into 1 as it is into 3. It gives you a chance to kind of arc it in and get a little bit more speed through the corners coming off the front straightaway than you do off the back. It's a tighter turn there, so interesting to see how things happen. But, of course, right on cue, we get a caution to throw things up as the 30 gets into trouble here. Randy, tough start for that car early on in this race.
Yeah, and he's not the only one. It's actually the 30, I think, is just he spun it all on his own, but future couple cars got into him there, and I think we got 4 or 5 cars actually probably going to be out of this race. A couple cars smoking as they go down on a pit lane, but just a single solo car incident that turned into a 4 or 5 car pileup.
And that tends to happen here as the replay comes up and you can see for yourself what happened. Just a lot of trouble here, I think, especially off corner exit. And when you've got these packs bunched up right after restarts or at the beginning of races, you know, you can make a mistake, and sometimes it's something that you could save yourself if you had a little bit more room, if the field were a little bit more strung out. But when you're so close to the beginning of the race, you know, sometimes you don't have enough room yet because cars haven't strung out that much, and you end up with situations like the one we just had.
And it's not just that, it's just how narrow this racetrack is, too. I mean, having a narrow racetrack, it makes it not only harder to race side by side with people, it makes it more easier for it to make a mistake. It's also more difficult to avoid incidents such as that, not quite as much room to go up to that top side and try to work your way around someone who's spinning like that, and getting down, coming and dropping off this apron here at Vegas. I've always found that this place is a lot more tricky in terms of avoiding wrecks than a lot of the other wider racetracks. Places like Fontana, you can generally avoid a wreck fairly easy. A place like Vegas, really easy for a relatively simple spin to turn into a relatively decently sized pileup.
And I think that's been a characteristic that's been a trademark of this place, even in the old configuration, too. The pavement wasn't necessarily all that wide. You had grass in the way to keep you pinned in there. But everybody now on pit road, everybody on the lead lap in for tires and service. This is standard fare, and again, here in the sim, biggest key on pit road, do not overshoot or undershoot your pit. It can make for a world of hurt if you screw that up, Randy.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the biggest thing you can do is not miss your pit or roll through your box. One driver already did that, though, the 98 of David Washington. He went down and he just missed his box entirely, didn't even try to really pull in. He turned left, realized that he was kind of just up a stream without a paddle, and he just decided to go all the way through. So because of that, he'll likely have to come down pit road this next time around unless he wants to risk it on the tires. So it'll either be starting up front on old tires for him or starting in the back, which is not what he wants to do, I think.
It's an interesting question because Washington's had a very strong setup the first two races, and if there's a car that can make some sort of strategy like that work, he would be one of the few that I think could. But as you said, tires are so key here. Maybe not so much here as some other places that we visit, but it still makes a big enough difference that if you've got 9 or 10 laps on the tires already, it's worth it to go ahead, make things happen, and come down and get tires.
Yeah, and we see he's going to actually come down pit road here and get himself some fresh rubber. And I think this is a smart call by him. Still just early runnings, about 115 laps left in this thing. And I think it's the wise call to make at this phase of the race. Maybe later on, once you get starting to 20, 30 to go, maybe risk it of, hey, I missed the box. We had a relatively short run. Maybe I just stay out front here and see what I can make happen. But here, just get your new tires, come down pit road. Maybe you get another quick caution after a few laps, and then you can maybe try to work some track position some other way.
Well, we've got a moment. Take a moment to let you know that tonight's broadcast of the Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by RealSimRacing.com. RealSimRacing.com has a league for every iRacing driver, including Wednesday night's Winston Cup Series and the Midnight Thunder Speedway Series on Thursday nights. For more information on those leagues and much more, visit www.RealSimRacing.com. So lights are off here on the pace car. We'll get the restart on lap 11, I believe. And it looks like Brandon Bowie and David Comstock are going to lead us to green. Maybe two-tire strategy there, Randy. Might be seeing something from these front two drivers.
Yeah, if not two tires, fantastic pit stops for him. If you're Trevor Apollo or Ashton Crowder, you're probably kicking yourself that you let the 40 and 44 get out in front of you.
We'll have to watch and see what happens. It'll be the first sort of guinea pig moment, if you will. We'll see if that sort of strategy actually plays out here as we get deeper into the race. But pace car comes down pit road again. Bowie launches off the front of the field to get a restart. Got about 2 or 3 car lengths on everybody before they even get to the start-finish line. And Comstock's almost in danger of getting swept up by Rapolo. And I believe Crowder's right there too. So he'll see if he can get to the middle. Drives a slightly defensive lane, gives him the chance to pick his spot, and he'll get off clean. Looks like Crowder's going to go clear too, and I believe that's Adam Benefield, the 83, who gets around Rapolo. So Rapolo not getting a good restart on the inside. Will drop 3 spots here on the opening lap after the restart.
Good move there by Adam Benefield in the 83, but what a start by the 44 of Brandon Bowie. There really wasn't a bad lane going to this green flag here. Both the inside and outside both got relatively good jumps, just that Brandon Bowie just timed the entire rest of the field, caught him sleeping. No one else could really time the Christmas tree the way that 44 did, and because of that, he's now working himself about a 4/10 of a second advantage only after a lap and a half.
About 4 or 5 car lengths back to the second place driver, David Comstock, our Icebreaker Series champion from the winter. Then Crowder's right there hanging tough, just like he did at the beginning of the Atlanta race last week. Then you've got Benefield, who was a big factor there, and it's Aegis teammates all packed in there like sardines. 5th, 6th, and 7th, Carl Shedd, Trevor Rapolo, and Dylan Jones, 6, 7, 8. Everybody kind of searching for lanes. Again, it looks like some people maybe getting a run here. We haven't had too many laps after the restart, but again, I think it's the same kind of concern here that we had just before we got the yellow. Get in a rhythm, get in a groove, find your fast lane, start clicking off laps, and if you've got a good piece, start showing that you can make your way up towards the front of this field.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell this is what this entire field is really thinking right now. I mean, you go through basically the top 20 here. You got to get back to 15th. Everyone's single file, and then you get to 16th, 17th, 18th. There's a bit of 2 wide scrapping here. Michael Waters as well as Stefan Lacente coming off of corner number 2, and behind them, Austin Coop as well as Scott Simley are coming into corner number 3 and 4 now. And actually, who's that green car on the inside? Greg Evans trying to make a big move. He's a little loose getting into 3. Did a good job to get that car back under him, though. Still fighting and trying to get around Scott Simley on the outside.
Got a whole bunch of cars battling there. Michael Waters is there. Stephanie Lesentine is there. Austin Coop is back in there. All side by side trying to make things happen here. Back in the field, they're all trying to sort things out. And while they race, Nelson Rivera has jumped out almost a second ahead of that battle pack in 15th position. So scrapping hard there around 20th, and it's allowing all the drivers in front of them to get away a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, that's sort of it. From a strategy standpoint, and even from a racing mindset, it's one of those things where, you know, you as a driver, you want to get around everyone who's in front of you. You want to go 2 wide, you want to go 3 wide, you want to make those fun racing moves. But sometimes that's the worst thing you can do, because you go too wide for 1-2 laps maybe, and then you see Nelson Rivera in front of you just stretch that gap out. And now if you're the likes of Austin Cube, if you're Michael Waters, yeah, you made a couple good moves to get yourself a spot up the field, but now you have to do a lot more work to even try to get with the rest of the field and try to pick up any more spots, but maybe not, as we got spinners down your front straightaway coming through the grass. They somehow managed to get that saved and get that. Wow, what moves there by Doug Roth in the 43, spinning down on the front straightaway. There was 2 cars, the 69 as well, I'm not sure who the 69 was, actually. That was Corbin Hemstreet. Both of those cars were basically 90 degrees sideways in the grass. Both of them somehow get them both going straight back forward. Think they're probably going to have to come down pit road and get some repairs, but we stay green. Wonderful saves by them.
Big time moves there to keep it off the wall and keep it straight at the end of the day from both Hemstreet and Doug Roth. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, David Comstock got around Brandon Bowie, ran down the 44 and got around him a few laps ago. So new leader there in that Gary Mercer Trucking Monster Energy Chevrolet SS. Crowder still in third, Benefield in fourth, and then you have to go back about half a second where you've got the whole of Aegis Motorsports, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th with Shed, Roppolo, Jones, and Tice all right there. So looking for Washington, still trying to drive his way up in the field, currently running in the 29th position after that pit road miscue, but a pretty strong run for that bunch. They seem a little bit Gibbsian in that sense. They work very well together as a team, and it will take a mighty effort to beat them, but so far we've got 4 cars in the field that are doing just that.
Yeah, right now this 4-car pack of Comstock, Bowie, Crowder, and Benefield they've kind of showed the fender to each other a little bit, saying, hey, you know what, I'm willing to make a move here, but they haven't been over-aggressive. It was, of course, a great move by Comstock to get himself to the lead, which, of course, we mixed while all that action was happening back deeper in the field, but you see they're just playing nice with each other, and doing this, they're just allowing themselves to stretch that gap over those Aegis guys running 5th, 6th, and 7th, lap after lap after lap. Adam Benefield here, you see he could have taken the inside on Ashton Crowder going into 3 and 4, but he backs out of it. They get themselves single file. They come back up onto your front straightaway, and they know they're racing smart. There's no point trying to make an aggressive move right now. 105 laps to go in this thing. Don't end your race when you have a potential to possibly win it.
Yeah, racing smart for the most part, but there is a caveat to that, and I think that's if you think you've got the faster car and it's easier for you to just run in front of the other person and you can still click off those fast laps even by getting around them, then you get around them. And I think that's exactly where Adam Benefield thinks his car is in comparison to Ashton Crowder's right now. Crowder is strong, no doubt, but Benefield's taking peaks underneath that 27 on corner entry, especially in 1 and 2. Not quite there this time, but I get the sense, Randy, give it 5 or 10 laps, Benefield might be looking underneath the 27 car for the 3rd position.
Yeah, I think if the opportunity presents itself, the 83 is definitely, I think, going to make a move on the 27. Everyone else is, playing really calm with one another. The rest of these 3 cars in this top 4, you don't really see them offsetting themselves too much. You see Ashton Crowder giving it just the headlight on the right-hand side of Brandon Bowie as they go down the front straightaway, but you see that for the most part they run pretty much all the same lane. It's actually important to note, Ashton Crowder actually runs higher than anyone else in this 4-car pack going into 1, so it's partially Adam Benefield maybe looking to make a move. I think it's also partly that 27 looking for some clean air in 1 and 2. He's running about half a lane higher up the racetrack than the rest of these in the top 4.
A little bit of clean air, and I think maybe a little bit less tire wear too. You do go up high, and you don't work it as much to get it down to the bottom, and that can give you a little bit of extra speed, especially if this run goes all the way on a green flag. We get to about 35-ish or so laps into these tires. That may end up paying off for Ashton Crowder. Also of note here, Comstock's come back a little bit to Bowie. Bowie's getting a little bit closer every single lap, and they're tucked together now, this 1, 2, 3, 4 little group, but I gotta believe that at some point they're gonna break that up because there's just a little bit more movement, I think, than is going to be required for these guys to be able to stick together the way they are. Someone's gonna get around somebody, Randy. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of one of those situations of when do you make that move, and to be honest, if you're someone like Brandon Bowie, when you make that move may have as much, it might depend as much on the cars behind you as the cars in front of you, because if you try to make that aggressive move on David Comstock, which he has a bit of a run right here, let's see if he goes for it. He looks to the inside, down your front straightaway into corner number 1, that 44 is pulled up alongside, and he got just the door open right there, and that was basically perfect situation. I was going to say you don't want to try to make it move, have it not work, and maybe lose yourself a couple spots there. Brandon saw that opportunity present itself. He went, he was aggressive with it, and because of that, he's now your race leader. And now for second place, the 27 of Ashton Crowder is trying to get around the 40 as well.
44 got a really good run out of turn 4 that last time by to get the lead. Coming to lap 26, Crowder trying to get the second position, won't have it at the stripe, but might have it as they come into 1 and 2. And then the question becomes, does Benefield follow the hole that Bowie and Crowder have made to get the third spot away from Comstock? Crowder still not clear of that 40 machine. Didn't get a good run off the corner at all, actually. Crowder is going to have to drop back a little bit, and that'll give Comstock the spot back. Meanwhile, all that racing has done exactly what you thought it would. The Aegis guys have come right back up and closed that gap to virtually nothing between Benefield and Carl Shed. So, 4th, 5th, 6th, all going to be really, really racy here in the next few laps.
Second and third is even put in that list as well, because right now the only car that has any separation from this gaggle of second through about 7th is your leader of Brandon Bowie, because of just the way that racing formed up after Brandon made that pass. Brandon actually gave himself this window here. Just when he timed that pass for the lead, he stacked up the 3 cars behind him, and then those 3 cars stacked themselves up on the rest of the Aegis guys, and because of that, Brandon Bowie can pretty much run clean, just look straight out the windshield. Everyone else is looking in their mirrors as much as they're looking in the windshield. That's going to allow that leader of the number 44 machine to just stretch the gap lap after lap after lap.
Already up to 0.3 of a second and growing with that 44 car. Starting to click off laps and set a good rhythm and good pace to extend a little bit of the gap between himself and Comstock. Meanwhile, that last time by Ashton Crowder nearly opened the door for Adam Benefield to get underneath for the third spot by overdriving the entry into turn 3. So, watching the 27, handling might be going away on that car as the tires go. Benefield looks underneath him, tries to make it stick. Is he going to have a run off the corner? Yes, he will. Here comes Benefield down the back straightaway. Going to have the inside line going into turn 3. Shed trying to figure out which way to go, who's going to have the faster car. But Benefield looks like he'll prevail off the corner. Maybe not going to hang on to it side by side. Crowder, I think, is going to have it at the stripe. We'll see. Very close. No, Benefield got him. So Benefield officially to P3. Just needs to clear the 27 to make it stick proper as they come out of turn 2.
That 83 car is hooking the bottom relatively well. The problem is that 27 hooks the corner exits very, very well. Also, you see in the entry to about 3/4 way through the corner, that 83 car gains on the 27, but you get about 75% of the way around. 27 gets on the throttle just maybe 10 or 15 yards sooner, and because of that, 27 comes around, and now he's officially scored in your third spot. Who's going to clear who first?
And how much of a gap is this going to create for David Comstock? He's already got 0.3 on Crowder, and still has to go make up the 0.5 to Bowie, but Crowder now officially back there, so he'll go back to 4th, Benefield to 3rd, and now may fall into the clutches of all the Aegis drivers because they are lined up like ducks in a row and ready to bounce on Crowder. Here comes Shed underneath, gets the drive underneath, and is going to have a nose underneath as they come down the tri-oval into turn 1. Shed looking to take over the 5th spot from Ashton Crowder.
And right now, if you're Ashton and Crowder, all you're doing right now is you're seeing all of those Aegis logos on those white hoods behind you, knowing that you might get freight trained, a little bit of a touch through 3 and 4 between the 11, and that's going to get Joseph Thieves caught up in that incident. The 5 is down on your inside retaining wall. We stay green for now. Is the yellow going to fly? The 27 is spun around as well.
They keep it going and keep it going straight, but that breaks up the Aegis foursome that was there. Replay comes up for you. Crowder got off the corner well and then bounced it off the wall, and Tice just had nowhere to go, was stuck on the bottom off the rebound there, and both of them dropped back. And what a killer for 2 cars that had been in the top 5. Likely kills their chances of even a top 10 here unless more unforeseen craziness happens. But tough break for Crowder and Tice this early in the race.
Yeah, that's a tough break for both of them. I think Crowder was sort of in a lose-lose situation right there, because if he didn't try and defend, he was only going to lose those spots anyways, just based on all those Aegis cars. You know those guys are going to work together. As we're talking about this, though, the 83 of Adam Benefield making a move on David Comstock in corners number 1 and 2. 83 is now up on the top side, should be able to get the run coming out of corner number 2. Actually, yes, he does, and because of that, Comstock drops back into 3rd. That's Benefield up about 3 or 4 spots in this run alone.
Benefield got a strong car as the run gets longer and longer and longer, just like he did last week in Atlanta. Same sort of story here. Meanwhile, you got Shed and Jones sitting right there, and Roppolo's also there too. So a lot of guys looking for spots here. It's going to be Shed that should have the look on Comstock next. Going to see if he comes underneath him and gets a nose under. Coming down the back straight into 3. Will Comstock have enough of a lead to shut the door? No, he won't, because Shed drives it in deep. Deep goes that 45 and goes right underneath the 40 and up to the 3rd position. And here comes Dylan Jones trying to get his 2nd win in a row. If he can get it done tonight in Vegas, comes right underneath Comstock down the front straight. So in half a lap, Comstock goes back to the 5th position, 2 spots down there on lap 37.
That's just sort of the situation of having these teammates behind you. If they're a little bit quicker than you, you know that you're almost guaranteed not to just lose 1 spot, but to lose 2, because you know those guys are going to work together and follow each other through. It's not going to be a situation where you have sort of a neutral party behind you that maybe you can try to work and you'll be able to defend. Those guys likely communicating with one another, and actually as they came off of number 4, David Comstock, I think, caught the wall, got a little bit loose, did a good job getting that thing back underneath him and saving it, but he still lost a bit of momentum, and now he has our pole sitter, Trevor Apollo, behind him through 1 and 2, wanting to get by as well.
Got lap traffic in the way there as well. Corbin Hemstreet not necessarily trying to be in the way, but just kind of making things a little bit difficult by virtue of being there. So going to be very, very interesting to see what happens, but they clear them all. And here comes Brandon Bowie down pit road. Looks like the first of the lead lap cars to come get service here. And Brandy, looks like everybody's going to be coming in within the next few laps for 4 tires and fuel.
And that's not really a big surprise as abrasive as this race surface is. The main limiting factor that you have isn't fuel, but actually tires. I will say I think Brandon Bowie likely came down in a pit window here, so he can likely make it to the end if we do end up staying green. It's going to be a little tight. Let's see if any other takers come on the pit road. Looks like no one else comes down pit road, so Brandon Bowie's going to have himself a relatively decent undercut. We do have a car on pit road a little bit deeper in the field. I think probably outside your top 15, outside your top 20 here. David Washington, one of the Aegis guys, so maybe watch for the front runners of that Aegis team to come down pit road. But if you're Brandon Bowie right now, you have to be asking yourself, if these guys stay out for too much longer, you might find yourself losing more than you'll actually gain.
That is an interesting point. He will gain some time just off the short pit, but should give it back up as his tires wear out, because he will be on older tires than the likes of Benefield, and Shed, and Jones, and Comstock, and everybody that he's been racing in the top 5 so far. So we'll have to watch, we'll have to see. And I think maybe biggest point here, if you are the 44, you do not want to caution at this point, because that just throws the whole strategy completely out of whack. We saw last week in Atlanta had a lot of issues with people who got cut underneath the car and just ended up in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that can oftentimes just, I mean, you're exactly right. If a yellow does come out, that's just sort of what can happen. But just to compare what those new tires can do for you, Adam Banfield, your current leader, on the outside is a 27 of Ashton Kreider, who's gotten his car repaired and is outside now on new rubber. That's the difference that Brandon Bowie is going to be feeling on those new tires. Look at the way that the 27 just gaps your leaders as they come off corner number 2. So that's going to be the advantage that Brandon Bowie has now. The thing is that the likes of Benefield, Shed, and Jones, when they eventually come down pit road, they're going to actually be the quicker cars. I will also say that your leaders here, they really only have a limited amount of time that they can be hemorrhaging that time to Bowie and be okay with that.
And Comstock nearly lost the rear end coming out of turn 4. Did a massively good job to save it as he came down the front straightaway, but dropped a few more spots. Roppolo got around him, so he'll go back to 6. And here comes Tarowska up for 7th. Maybe an issue on the 40. Might have got the wall a little bit more than we thought, but a slow car on the back straightaway. Comstock dropping spots here after he loses the car in the rear end a little bit coming out of 4.
And we've seen Comstock struggle with that a handful of laps now, especially coming off of corner number 4. I think we've seen him make 2 or 3 different saves now. That's one of the reasons that he actually lost a couple positions. In fact, this time around, he got a little wiggly across the tri-oval, and into 1, he's scary loose as well. Able to get it back underneath him and keep it along the high side of the racetrack. But that number 40 car is not looking particularly happy, and David Comstock, I would not be surprised if he comes down pit road relatively shortly here and makes some changes to tighten that car up. 44 is actually coming behind him as well, and that is not what you want to see if you're the 40. Momentarily 3 wide off of 4.
All sorts of cars coming down pit road now, but you still got that bunch at the front of the field, and they're all tightened up there. It's Benefield and Shed and Dylan Jones all within about 4 car lengths of one another, and they all still have to come down pit road and get tires. So going to have to watch and see when they come and who comes in relation to when they come. Those few laps of difference when you pit can make a lot of difference when we get everybody cycled through and get back to green flag racing.
Yeah, right now it's just a big question of when is everybody going to pit. And you see your top 3 right now, Adam Benefield, Carl Shed, and Dylan C. Jones, all just basically under a blanket right now as they go into 1 and 2. 4th car in line is the 44 of Brandon Bowie, and there's the 2 strategies just kind of overlapping here for the moment as the 44 is trying to unlap himself, and these guys, they're going to have to let him by, but they don't want to let him get by too quickly because the further up the road he gets, the more likely he re-inherits that lead. But there's going to be a bit of an overlap in terms of just if we stay green for much longer, when they come out of pit road, when the likes of Benefield, Shed, and Jones, and as I say that, both Shed and Jones are on pit road, if we stay green, they're going to have a similar stint where they're just quicker than Bowie, and it's just going to go swing back in their way.
I think Shed saw Bowie come by, and he tried to block him as best he could on the exit of turn 2, but Bowie was still able to drive underneath Shed. I think Carl at that point said, okay, you know what? It's time to come get tires, and let's just go ahead and make all that happen, deal with it now, come in with a teammate so I have someone to run with, get back out there and start clipping on lap. And Benefield's hand gets forced too by that. With all the rest of the leaders coming in, he has to come in, so he's in. David Comstock also in. That should just about do it for most of the main contenders. Might have a few folks that stay out here to try and catch a Costin if they're lucky, but with Benefield coming down, most of the drivers that have been running top 5 for the majority of this race are all good. As Dylan
we got a spinner, 1 and 2.
Loops it, coming out of pit road, just got into the gas a little bit too quickly, coming out of turn 2, and just set it right around in low gear. That's cold tires 101 for you, Randy. If you get on them too quick, everything bad happens really, really fast.
Yeah, and it can sometimes just be awkward to drive these cars on relatively flat road because, I mean, you have the cars set up just essentially leaning to the left, and they're used to driving up on that banking all the time, and if you haven't really practiced your pit exits enough, if you haven't been as aggressive in your practices trying to get off of pit road, especially in race-style situations, really, really easy to make that sort of mistake. I think Dylan C. Jones, he's unlucky in the fact that a yellow didn't come out, but he's lucky in the fact that he didn't spin back up on a traffic and get T-boned and just end his night right there.
Yeah, he doesn't have any damage, and that I think is the biggest key. Gonna maybe flat spot the tires a little bit. We'll see what he does here in the next few laps if he decides to ride it out or come on in. But big trouble for Dylan Jones. That puts a big, big damper in his fight to try and win back-to-back races and become the first driver to do that in this very, very early stage of the 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. Also, if you want to know what pitting does for you, Carl Shed came in a lap earlier, got out ahead of Adam Benefield by about 3 or 4 car lengths. So, short pitting works, at least for now. But again, we'll have to see, because that tire wear can make difference, especially if this run goes into another long green flag run and we run another 35 laps in a row without a yellow.
I will say for Shed and Benefield, likely, I mean, I don't think that we'll see enough tire wear that Benefield will get a big advantage over Shed just because it is only a single lap difference. Yeah, I mean, it'll probably work itself out to something to a few hundredths every single lap, but I don't think it's going to be quite the difference that we've seen from everyone else. But it's going to be very, very close here. Main question I really have is how long is that 44 going to be up front, and how much longer until his tires start to drop off? We still have a few cars that haven't actually come down pit road, but basically once they do, the 44 is back to being your effective race leader.
And of note, those 4 cars who have yet to come down, and I presume are hoping for a yellow, maybe to get some track position, are Thomas George, Sean Boundy, Bobby Wetzel, and Kyle Tarasca, all ahead of Brandon Bowie, who currently runs in the 5th position, and more importantly, about, I think, if I'm looking at this correctly, somewhere, yes, about 11 seconds ahead of Shed and Benefield. So that's the number to remember. 11 seconds. Can Shed and Benefield make that up on Brandon Bowie, with Bowie's older tires hampering him a little bit, slowing him down? He's going to run a little bit slower laps as we get towards the end of this run if it stays that green. So, Randy, just going to have to watch, just going to have to see.
11 seconds is a lot of time to try to make up, though, but let's take a look what the lap time difference was. Last time around for Brandon Bowie in the 44 did a 30.8. Adam Benefield did a 30.5. So about 3/10 every single lap. I think if they can hit that mark, I think they should be able to reel in Brandon Bowie if we stay green. If we don't stay green, it really doesn't matter because they'll reel him in anyways. But it's also important to note that both Benefield, they just lost all of this time. Not only all this time, but look at all the track position they lost. They have to regain all that time through Scott Simley. Carl Shedd is in there, AJ Browning, Michael Waters. They not only have time to make up, they have to pass about 14, 15 cars doing so.
Gonna have to watch and see what happens as everybody just kind of runs around here on pit road. Gonna move up here and see what Thomas George is up to. The main driver out there on old tires in the front of this field here. One of three that currently sits ahead of Brandon Bowie as Taraska got passed by the 44 machine. So once those three come down pit road, we'll be complete with this cycle of pit stops.
Yeah, the 45 of Carl Shedd right now in a very, very precarious situation. And this is sort of the gamble with the long strategy here, because if you do run out there on the old tires and just run maybe an extra 8, 9, 10 laps, yes, you will have a point at the end of the run where you will have a pretty big advantage over Brandon Bowie. But the problem is here, James, is that when you come off a pit road, if anyone deeper in the field short pit, they're undoubtedly going to be in front of you. So now you not only have to try to reel in the 44 Brandon Bowie, you have to drive yourself through these precarious situations in traffic. And sometimes it's not just slow drivers you have to come up on. For example, if you're Carl Shedd, next two cars in line you have to get by Trevor Rapolo and David Washington.
You have to navigate your way through all that traffic, and if you're George, you have to try and make sure that you hold your position and keep everybody behind you, but also don't get run over by the guys who have fresh tires. You see, Steve Gottschalk just got past him, as did Ashton Crowder. He's getting freight trained. He's giving up lots and lots of time, and you have to be careful with your tires with that old, because it can get a little bit hairy, just in the same kind of way that it got a little bit hairy a few laps ago for Shedd and Benefield when they worked their way through that lap traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it can get real hairy real quick with all this traffic. And right now, Brandon Bowie can see your race leader, the 41 of Thomas J. George, both working through corners number 1 and 2. Last time by, Brandon Bowie reeled in 2 full seconds on that number 41 machine. So tires are pretty much dead. Right now, all those guys that didn't pit, I think pretty much still haven't actually come down pit road. Still just trying to work that track position, hoping for a yellow flag. And with some of the gaggles on track that we have with some of the strategies, not exactly out of the question that we get one.
Yeah, I don't think that's too crazy to think about, especially when you consider that lap that Shedd and Benefield had to work their way through traffic. They actually lost about half a second to Brandon Bowie on track. So that pack of cars, maybe 15th to 25th there, about all running together, if they stay bunched up like that, it can slow people down. Meanwhile, Bowie is just coming, driving through the middle of turns 3 and 4, going to come up on the outside of the 41 of Thomas George, and here comes Brandon Bowie to take the lead back on lap 60. Bowie crosses the stripe first, back to the point.
Good move there by Brandon Bowie, and basically well done by Thomas George as well. He just sort of let Bowie go with it. He knew that there was no point fighting it just with the advantage that he has, but Cisco actually in the production van, he actually made a pretty interesting observation here. Could these guys that haven't pit yet, the likes of George, Taraska, and Ward, all these guys are still up front, haven't come down pit lane yet, could they be thinking of a two-stopper and cutting a pit stop out completely based on when we had that yellow flag come out?
It's certainly possible, but we'll have to figure that out on the other side, because we are going to take our first commercial break of the evening right now. So, be back with you in just a moment. You are watching the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV.
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
So cool, yeah. Nate, what are you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on the animation for the game. We're working on getting pit crews fully developed, and that involves a lot of moving parts. So I'm going in and making sure that each moving part can dovetail smoothly into the next one, so that when you pull in for a pit stop, it looks like the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of jumbled pieces that suddenly stop and then go and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool, but why aren't you working on the time model? Nothing?
And welcome back to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV. James Pike and Randy Chinneth here with you, and take a moment here to do two things. First, remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top-quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. Thank Hippie's Paint Shop for their support of the Full Throttle Cup Series. Also, we've hit that point in the race where it's time to take our midway race break, which is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. Brandon Bowie currently leads the field out here with 67 laps complete. Jeff Ward currently runs in the second spot, then Adam Benefield in P3. Kyle Taraska currently holds fourth. Carl Shedd is in the fifth position. Trevor Rompolo currently runs sixth. The seventh position belongs to David Comstock. Dwayne Vincent runs eighth. Galen Gibbon ninth. Nelson Rivera 10th as Bowie comes down pit road.
Yeah, 44 just came down on a pit road here, and this is really interesting to me, James, because Brandon Bowie is showing that he has no confidence in that car, I think, on any long runs. I think right now the longest we've seen him run on a set of tires here under green flag conditions is about, what, 25 laps?
25 or 30 gives me a sneaking indication that he might be trying to three-pit this race the same way that Thomas George is trying to one-stop this race. Might be off with that, but I get the sense with the way he's been pushing on these tires, Randy, I'm not too far off.
Yeah, I think you're pretty much right. I think that's what he's trying to do here. I think that's just, I don't know, I think to me is that especially if it stays green, you don't really have enough laps to really make that work. I think Brandon Bowie will be able to get himself up through the majority of this field, especially after his final stop. The problem is that I don't see him being able to get himself up front for the win if we stay green, especially based on the fact that we have some people potentially trying to one-stop. Then you have the likes of Carl Shedd and Adam Benefield, who probably are going to stop just once more and split it into two. I think going three, I think you just spend too much time on a pit road, as right now the fight for second is heating up besides Jeff Ward and Carl Shedd.
Shedd coming underneath Ward. Ward's got the older tires here. Shedd has been one of the top drivers in this race all night long, and here comes the 45 machine underneath the 89 as they come out of turn 4. Give the position to Carl Shedd. He'll go up to B3 and set his sights on the 89 and the NE3. Get back up front, get that race lead back for Aegis Motorsports.
Yeah, so definitely good job for Aegis Motorsports, but what can Carl Shedd do to try to reel in the 83 of Adam Benefield as they come off of corner number 2? So 1.5 second disadvantage that 45 of Carl Shedd has. And as far as memory serves me right here, James, Carl actually pit a lap before Adam and had the advantage of the undercut essentially. And now Adam basically has a 1.5 second lead. So the 83 cars seem to be much better through traffic than the 45.
Maybe a stacked deck of cards in favor of that 83 machine, perhaps. We are in Vegas, after all. Things like that happen.
Loading the dice, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, something like that. Rolling them down the craps board and that sort of thing and making it work. Although we'll lay back with the gambling jokes, save for the fact that a pass bet, if you made one on Benefield to make one happen over this green flag run, go ahead and collect your winnings, because Benefield's running away in front of this field. Solid car all night, though, so I think the majority of us should not be surprised to see that 83 up there. And he was fast in Atlanta, too. Ran up on the top 5, top 10 all night long, so might just be in line for something big here.
Yeah, so I mean, that 83 car, I mean, he finished second last week out at Atlanta Motor Speedway, so that Adam definitely has pace, and it's definitely interesting right now is that not only is he in front of of Carl Shed, but he's actually stretching that gap by about 1.5 to 0.2 every single time around this racetrack on slightly older tires. Now, that could be one of two things. That could be either Adam's pushing a little bit harder, or that 45 of Carl Shed, he either made a bad adjustment or he's trying to conserve those tires, thinking that we might just stay green here to the end through these final 50 laps.
Which is interesting because it does bring up a valid point. This might not necessarily be a matter of Adam being that much faster than Carl, period. There may well be some strategy involved in this. And to be honest, I think you have to consider it with the way we've had almost cautions not turn into cautions at all tonight. That seems to be the way these sorts of incidents have been trending. We've only had the one. It was early on in the race. We've gone green since that caution on lap 8. So gotta watch for that. If you end up in that sort of position, you may end up finding yourself loving life if you save your tires and give yourself something to actually run here with about 10 or 20 laps to go.
Yeah, I mean, that you could absolutely adore yourself if being able to just be conservative and run second, give Adam Benefield a little bit of time every single time by, but have yourself the advantage. Maybe you can pit a little bit later, have the newer tires a little bit deeper into the run, or even if you're able to run nicer with the tires, maybe if you're Carl Shed, you try to really undercut Adam Benefield here. That is one of the nice things of having this 2-second gap, is that if the 45 decides it's time to go, he can make his final stop and essentially have that be unrespondable by the 83, because by the time Adam Benefield sees that happening, he's already across the stripe, and as I say that, 45 is down on a pit road.
Here comes Carl Shed for tires. He comes down pit road. Also of note, Brandon Bowie just unlapped himself from Benefield on that last lap, so fresh tires seem to be working well for that 44 machine. Gonna have to watch and see what Benefield himself does. Gonna make for some interesting strategy. See how much he wants to let Carl Shed short pit him by. See whether or not he wants to come down on pit road now. I think the answer, at least for this lap, is that Benefield's content to stay out and be okay with the tires that he's got. So just gonna have to wait and see. But it could get interesting if it becomes 2, 3, 4, 5 laps in between the pit stops of Shed and Benefield. Because if we get a gap that big, it actually can make a difference in the speed, and you can see Shed maybe come back down and close the gap on Benefield when he comes out.
Yeah, and his memory serves me right, Adam Benefield was more than happy to stay out a few laps after Brandon Bowie on that first run. However, he didn't let Carl Shed get much of an undercut on him, and he should have noticed by now, or at least had a spotter tell him, that second place runner in the 45 came down and hit pit lane. But this time around, Adam Benefield stays out there on that racetrack, so I think he's just staying with his game plan, and to me, that's smart. Only about 45 laps to go in this thing, and when did Adam Benefield come down on a pit road the first time? That was lap number 48. Might be just trying to split the difference here and work about 37, 38 laps per stint. Maybe come down pit road sometime around lap number 85, lap number 90.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely the smartest thing. I think if you're Benefield, you've got license and got room, especially since Shed short pit you and you still manage to get around him to test how strong your car is on these older tires and see if you can do exactly what you said, Randy. Split the difference in two, and I think especially if this race goes green, that will be the strategy to play if you can.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different strategy points happening right now. I mean, you have Brandon Bowie, who seems to be pitting every single, 20 to 25 laps right now. The 45 just sort of put himself on his own little strategy here just with the timing. Jeff Ward also came down pit road. Adam Benefield, who was basically on the same strategy as the 45, now offsetting himself. And then you have those guys who might be looking at a one-stopper. There's about 5 or 6 different potential strategy lines playing themselves out right now. And it's going to be difficult to tell which one's better than which until we get to about 10 to 15 to go, where they should all sort of meet up and they should all fight it out just to the checkered flag.
We'll see how they meet up. That'll be an interesting thing to watch here. So Benefield still stays out here, getting passed by a lot of people. Galen Goodman comes flying by on the outside. So again, you see the difference that fresh tires makes, but let's see what happens. See, Steve Gottschalk is going to come in a little bit further back on the field this time by, so the Nerf machine will come down pit roads for service, but it's still Benefield in front. And after all the trouble he had, it's David Comstock, of all people, in second. So nice little rebound for the 40 machine after all that trouble in that opening green flag stint.
Yeah, well done by him. And then 25 is Stefan Marinac, makes up that third spot about 4 seconds back. David Comstock in the 40. You see the driver of CJ LeVere getting himself around here. I believe he's just coming off of pit road and unlapping himself. So definitely good to see the 40 back up there near the front. I think he's just a little bit off cycle, and with that time he lost, James, I just think he's probably going to be out of touch. I think when everything comes to fruition, likely won't be in the fight for the win.
Yeah, hard to really keep an eye on who's in cycle exactly besides Benefield, or at least on the lead cycle, that is. Because once you go there, you have to go back to Shed, and Shed is currently running 17th a lap down. And then I think it's Rapolo that's next, and he's in 21st, also a lap down. So everybody really spread out here. With all these green flag runs, you're seeing all sorts of different pit strategies come to the fore. And it's just a matter, I think, of testing your luck and figuring out which one of them is the best one.
Jeff Ward is on that list as well. He came down a lap or so after Carl Shed did, so keep an eye on him as well. He's someone in the mix. It's just going to be interesting to see how things will work themselves out. I don't know. It's just really, really difficult here to predict what's going to happen, because as the 40 actually comes down on a pit road, that's David Comstock. Adam Benefield, though, continues to stay out. I think we're going to see Adam pit sometime around lap 90 to 95.
Gonna have to watch, gonna have to keep good, but I'm seeing a lot of these drivers from a little bit further back in the field start to make their way down pit road, seeing a lot of pit-in notices. So you have to think, if you're Benefield, you have to come down at some point. Is this the time? Yes, yes it is. Here comes your leader down pit road, Adam Benefield in the 83 car. Been very, very, very quick all night long, and now here for what might be his last pit stop of the race. One clean pit stop, all it takes to drive off and potentially set him on the way to victory lane later tonight.
We know we've seen a few mistakes happen on pit road this evening, and we know how much that can be disastrous. Adam Benefield cleanly into his box, doesn't overshoot it, and now the big question is, for Adam Benefield, it's going to be about 38 laps to go to the end here if we end up staying green. And I think that should be fine. That's a number I think that number 83 car is going to be able to hit. Question is, will everyone behind him who pit half dozen or so laps earlier, sometimes even more if you go to the 44 Brandon Bowie, how are they going to fare getting to the end of this motor race?
I think they'll be able to hit that number. I think the big question is, will their tires be all that good when they hit that number? Benefield will probably have the best tires of anybody in the field at that point if we go green all the way, and it's going to be a matter of how quickly that 83 car can drive back up from the field and start jumping around all these people. So right now it is actually Greg Evans who leads the field, and Brandon Bowie is P2. So that short stop strategy, that 3-stop strategy, we're at the point in the cycle where that looks really good. You start to see that come to play every time we hit every about 25th lap or so. So no surprise here. We're getting to lap 90. I would think lap 100 would be another target number. Brandon Bowie might come in a little bit sooner, though. I think his last shot was on lap 70, so maybe about lap 95, I think, Randy, if I'm decent at math at least, might be the next time we can expect that 44 to come down pit road, probably for his final pit stop of the race.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. Last time he came onto pit road was lap number 69, and actually he's coming onto pit road right now, so this is interesting. He's making it so that the 83 of Adam Benefield is unable to get any sort of undercut at all. I think the problem for him is that he's not going to have much of an advantage on the 83. He comes down on a pit road now, and he's given Benefield a couple of quick laps. But what's going to happen is that Benefield is only about 20 or so seconds back. 83 is 100% going to get by him. He's already on the front straightaway and getting ready to go into one. So now Brandon Bowie is basically compared to the 83, who are expecting to be your effective race leader. He's going to be about half a lap behind, and I don't think Brandon Bowie can make up that time on relatively equal tires.
It's an interesting one because you come down pit road right here if you're Bowie, and that to some degree kind of kills the strategy that you were running with the whole race, which would have been interesting to see if it had worked out. I think it definitely had a chance, but at this point we're not going to know because Bowie has effectively reset himself and put himself on the same cycle as the leaders. Problem for the 44 is that he's going to drop back to, I would say, somewhere around 18th, 19th before we get all done and he gets back around. Oh, maybe further than that. He's going all the way back to 22nd, 23rd now. So slipping spots down the field, and it's going to have to find a way to make all that up in 35 laps.
I think the problem right now for Brandon Bowie is that he just sort of he sort of put himself in no man's land in terms of strategy, because he didn't really offset himself from the 83 at Benefield for long enough. Because to me, I think the 44 had two very good options to potentially getting himself a win. Either pitting when we said sometime around lap number 95 to lap 100, so he had that bit of an undercut on the 83, or even trying to risk it and maybe trying to make it to the end if you had the fuel. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know. For me, for the 44, Brandon Bowie, he just sort of he went for a mediocre call that always is going to take him out of contention, rather than one that might get him a chance to get the win.
Dropped all the way back to the 30th spot when it was all said and done, a lap down. So Bowie's going to have the fastest car here on the track and should be able to unlap himself if we go green here for a while. But I think Bowie's going to have to get a caution in order to make this work. There's just no other way at this point that he's going to have any chance to win this race, maybe even let alone get a top 10.
He's going to need a yellow flag 100%, but even the problem for Brandon Bowie is I don't even think... Oh, no, never mind. He's already on that lead lap, but... I mean, this is sort of the other problem too, right? Because now if we get a caution relatively soon, everyone comes down on pit road, likely including him, and he currently runs 27th. So now, I don't know, this is part of the reason I don't like this strategy, because if it stays green, it doesn't work for the 44, and if it goes yellow, it doesn't work out for him either.
We'll have to watch and see how Bowie rebounds from this pit stop. But for now, we're going to go side by side for the moment and get you your last commercial break in before the finish of tonight's race from Las Vegas from the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. You're watching their coverage on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking. 25 laps to go here in Las Vegas, and a battle for the lead as we come right back here. Carl Shedd and Jeff Ward and Adam Benefield all in that spot of their pit stop cycles where they all kind of meet in the middle, and it makes for some great on-track racing. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 car length separation as they come down the tri-oval.
Good hard fight as they go into one, and it's basically, I mean, Adam Benefield's on the newest tires, Carl Shedd is in second with those, and they're going to go 3 wide actually through corners number 1 and 2. No, I take that back. Shedd is going to cut Jeff Ward off there. 83 of Adam Benefield, not quite able to get 2 cars in one corner, but James, he tried to make an attempt at it. Into 3 and 4, though, no way Carl can hold off the 83. Adam Benefield back to the point.
Tires are king. Adam Benefield back to the front where he's been for the majority of the night. Now it's just a matter of making sure you don't lose too much time. I think Shen and Ward are going to put up a valiant fight, but Benefield's got the fastest car, the freshest tires. It's a deadly, deadly combination. Meanwhile, Ward trying to get a run underneath Carl Shed, trying to make things happen here. Might have a change for second as they go to turn 3.
89 to the inside of the 45 into corners number 3 and 4, and we've seen all night tonight that inside can be strong, but generally it's easy to defend on that high side of the momentum you get, and Carl Shetty shows that again as they come across your start-finish line into corners number 1 and 2. A good run is what it was off of corner number 4 for the 45, and the 89 giving Carl a lot of room up on that top side as they come off of corner number 2. I think it's going to be advantage 45 again down your back straightaway.
45 is going to have the nose out in front as they come into 3, and Ward's there. It's going to be all about the drive that Shed gets off of 4. Ward doesn't get enough to clear. Here comes Shed on the outside. Should have at least a spot on scoring by maybe inches there. Close, close, close. How about 4 1,000ths of a second? That sounds pretty good to me, doesn't it, Randy? But still side by side as they come through the corner looking for something, anything. I almost get the sense that they both kind of said, well, Benefield's gotten past us. Let's just make things happen here and see what happens, Randy.
Yeah, I think they realize that there's not much in it for them in terms of the race lead, but they need to be careful because the 40 of David Comstock only about a second and a half back, and he's closing by about 6 to 7 tenths every single lap with these two racing like this. Getting ready to get it. We're 21 laps to go left in this race, and the 40 of David Comstock is quickly catching them. The 94 of Galen Gidman is actually going to come through and likely divide this battle up just a little bit. 40 is going to reel them through. Please note that Galen Gidman in the 94 is a lapped car, but he's on fresh tires, likely going to cycle through regardless.
Gonna make it interesting thing. Here comes Gidman, might just split up and maybe end up finding a way to get the spot to Ward, or dives it all the way down to the bottom with a sweeping move. Might make a 3 wide going into the corner, but the 2 of Jeff Ward and Carl Shed back out, wisely decided to head up top. They're just going to let all these cars by, save for Comstock, who has now come from about a second back to within maybe 2 or 3 car lengths of second. So second, third, and fourth now a battle, and still Ward and Shed are side by side, and here comes Comstock. Might try and get underneath Ward. No, he'll hop to the outside as they come out of turn 4.
And where is the 40 going to go? I don't think he can get to the inside based on where Jeff Ward is as they go into corner number 1. Is he going to try to work the top? He puts himself somewhat in the middle, but he was pretty safe on the entry. He tries to work the undercut as they come off of corner number 2, and they're going to be 3 wide down your Nellis straightaway. The 40 pulls side by side with the 89 and Jeff Ward. They get two wide as they go into 3, and David Comstock is going to pick up the 3rd spot. Now working on the 45 for second. 2 cars in the space of 3 and 4 is what David Comstock's going to pick up.
Fresh tires making all the difference. David Comstock takes that 40 car right to P2, and after the kind of race he had in that first segment, I think he will take that and be a very, very happy man. And guess what? The battle is still not over. Contact between the 89 of Jeff Ward and the 45 of Carl Shed, and Ward, I think, finally, after about 10 laps or so battling with Carl Shed, might just have the 3rd position, but we don't know at this point. That might still be a battle yet before the end of this race.
Be interesting to see whether or not they're done, and the yellow flag comes out, and this is going to change everything.
The yellow flag on lap 109, 16 laps to go, and I have to believe that everybody is coming down pit road for tires. Trouble with the 99 car, the reason for this, our second yellow of the race.
Actually, it wasn't the 99. It was CJ LeVere in the 4 that actually happened. This is just coming off of corner number 2. He just got loose, and he got it down to the apron. He almost had it saved. Actually, he had it saved, and then that car just snapped loose on him again. That was really weird. That was a very odd accident.
Strange things can happen here at Las Vegas. It's a little bit of a weird place sometimes. It can do some funky things to you.
There could be a race commentator in the LSR booth, for example.
Might just have to go through the Twilight Zone exhibit already. But at any rate, cars down pit road here, and everybody wants tires in service. This will determine a good chunk of how we get one driver to victory lane here tonight.
What's going to happen? I think for most everybody, it's going to have to be a a 4-tire call. But will someone risk it with 2 tires? It's going to be interesting to see. Maybe if you're the 44 Brandon Bowie, you make some sort of call like that, and he's going to pull into his pit box. And what's he going to do? The 83 is already rolling off. Right side's getting ready to go up for the 44.
Benefield makes it off pit road first. No real change. It looks like everybody did take 4 Comstock there. And then Jeff Ward 3rd, Shed 4th, Propolo up the 5th, and then Dylan Jones 6th. But I think we're going to see who's got the fastest car here. And all that pit strategy that we've been talking about all night that we might have thought of done something, all out the window now. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, everything's basically out the window now, and it's just talking about that pit strategy, or the tire strategy we saw over the course of this race, though, have to bring up the 44 of Brandon Bowie, who all night we saw him out near the front, and then he made that weird call with about 40-some-odd laps to go to basically come down right after the 83 of Adam Benefield did, and he just completely took himself out of the situation. He was out there on somewhat newer tires than everyone else, but he still only managed to get himself up to about 12th or 13th. He's going to restart 11th tonight, and I don't see him making up 10 spots in about a 15-lap or so run to the checkers.
10 spots might be a little bit difficult, but how about the guy in 7th position that we have not talked about all evening, but is always a threat whenever he's near the front of the field? And here we are at the right time in this race. He's right there. The former champion of this series, that 13 Parker Store Chevrolet of Dwayne Vincent, found his way right up to the front right when you need to.
This is really when you do want to be here. Another car that managed to find themselves up at the front of the field when it matters. Defon Marinac started this race in the 39th position, now finds himself running in the 8th spot. There's a handful of cars that have themselves near the front of the field when they need to be. Also with this yellow flag, you know who comes back into this? That 11 of Dylan C. Jones had that half spin coming off of pit road. Now he's going to roll off when they get back to green flag racing here in 6th. Back at it with a shot for the win.
Gets a little bit of a saving grace shot here, so he'll have another chance here. He's got to get through 5 cars to get up to P1 in the span of about 12 to 13 laps, I think. When we go back and get the green flag, we'll have a little bit more updated number for you here in just a few moments. But yeah, gonna be interesting to watch and see what happens, because now this really just becomes a pure speed game, and he who has the fastest car is going to win this race, and we're going to get to see them all battle it out and hopefully not tear it up. But at the end of the race, it's close quarters. Something could happen, Randy, and I get the sense that we're probably not done with yellows now that we've had one this close to the end.
I wouldn't really be that surprised, especially when the race comes down to something like this. We had a good long stretch there from about lap number 9 or 10, basically all the way to this point, about 100-plus laps of pure green flag racing strategy, and these drivers trying to outthink one another. Now this caution comes out, and it goes from a good long-term strategy, basically like a long chess match at 100, almost 200 miles an hour. Now it's basically going to turn into a Saturday night heat race, if I could speak.
Or Sunday afternoon heat race, but with the literal heat, since we're out in the desert, of course. But lights are off on the pace car. So Benefield, Comstock, Ward, Shed, Ropolo, Jones, Vincent, Marinac, Waters, Greg Evans. Your top 10 when they come to get this restart on lap 113. So 12 laps to go when we get the green flag. Gonna be entertaining. Anything we should watch for right before we get the green flag, Randy?
Where's the yellow going to come from?
Valid question indeed. I will not discount that for a second. So, here we go. Pace car gets ready to turn, gets ready to go. There's the hard move. Here comes Benefield to the green flag, and a great restart. Just unbelievable stuff. And Comstock goes all the way down to the apron. Caution somewhere. We'll see.
Oh, this is off of 4.
Trouble on
big pile up off of 4. A bunch of the lap cars.
Big trouble. A whole bunch of lap cars getting somewhere in the way there. Randy, as we get ready to pull up the replay here, what did you see in that whole mess?
17 of Bobby Wetzel just wheel spun it out into the outside wall.
And then collects a whole bunch of people as you see the replay now, and that just happens. There's no space, all up on the restart. Everybody's bunched together trying to get things going, and it is the best way to take out not just one car, but multiple cars in a race like this. Pack them all in like sardines and tell them to avoid that.
Yeah, that was a pretty hard hit there. I mean, as Cisco kind of laughing about it, he really did. He got on the gas, and that car just it was like it was predestined to put itself in the wall.
Not a lot of fun at all for the 17 machine. So, that's going to be a tough way
but
to end that.
It's fun for us.
But, I don't know. I've never necessarily. I wouldn't say I call that fun. I think the fun for me is in the challenge here and watching these guys trying to handle these things because, you know, it's a sim, it's real life, it doesn't matter. These cars are so much like the real life counterparts that it's not easy to do these things. And, you know, we watch these drivers in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series do this week in, week out, and they make it look so easy. And then we try to do it ourselves as normal people here in the sim, and you get behind the wheel of one of these things, you realize that even simple things like a restart are a lot harder to do than you originally give them credit for.
Oh yeah, I mean it is definitely difficult out here for all these guys, and really those little mistakes can happen even on the sim, and it's not like this just in the NASCAR world. You see it in the open wheelers as well. IndyCar is another one of those cars. Insanely difficult to actually restart coming back from a yellow flag. Not uncommon to see people spin getting on the power there. But main thing we need to talk about here, James, I think. Now, because of this, we get 4 or 5 or so laps under this pace car, and we get from about a 10 to 12 lap run, and then now we're going to be under 10. And if another yellow does come out, if it comes out after about, I think, 3 or 4 laps, I think the number we're looking for is 121. Any caution after that ends the race almost, I think, for sure.
And just about immediately, we have no green-white checkered here on the sim, so anything that happens that late will just lead us to a race that ends under yellow behind the pace car. Not necessarily something that I would be looking forward to, but definitely won't rule out the possibility of it happening, especially since we're in that stage of the race where, as our friend Darrell Waltrip says, cautions breed cautions.
They definitely do, and we just saw it there, and it's can be a two-pronged issue. It could be people just struggling. Maybe they have a damaged race car. Maybe they made some sort of risk in terms of the tire strategy and just basically didn't have the traction to get that car going the full throttle again. Or it could just be people trying to make aggressive moves here at the end of the race. Cautions generally won't breed cautions in the middle of the run just because there's not as much to gain. Here, though, you have everything to gain, but you also have everything to lose.
And you can lose so much on these restarts because it is so easy to drop spots when you've got everybody stacked up behind you. And if you spin the tires or get loose or get punted to the outside here on a restart, it can just make your life absolutely miserable. And what should have been a top 5 run can become a top 10 run. And what should have been a win can become a top 10 run. And what could have been a top 10 run could become a 20th place run. You have to nail this restart no matter what. I think at the end of the day, that's really the only bottom line that we can look at and say Stone Cold Steve Austin would approve of.
Yeah, you have to nail this restart. You have to be right on the back of that 83 machine. You have to be right on the back of whichever car is in front of you. If you're David Comstock, you have to get a fantastic jump on that 83. It in some ways almost comes down to a drag race in terms of having to have the reaction times and not just the ability to drive that car down into one aggressively.
Unless you've got fresh tires and you're up front in front of the field like Adam Benefield is, that makes it a little bit easier to do. And I think we have to talk a little bit here while we've got a moment about these restarts. They've been incredible. The last 2 or 3 we've seen off yellows, just nuts for the guys in the lead. They've had a really, really good, strong run at things.
Yeah, they really have, and it actually surprised me as they came back to the stripe on that restart where we got the quick yellow, how much of an advantage the 83 of Adam Benefield was, allowed David Comstock, as I was thinking ahead of myself, to basically swing down all the way to the inside almost immediately, and unfortunately it got brought out to the yellow flag. Couldn't see how that played out, but right now, I mean, I kind of mentioned it. It's like a bit of a drag race here as you come back to the green flag. The difference being, if you're the 83, you are actually the Christmas tree that everyone else is reacting to, and that's why you're pretty much guaranteed that 3 to 4/10 of a second advantage while everyone else reacts to seeing you go, whereas you go whenever you decide.
Quick moment here before we go back green to let you know that coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing software of LSRTV. You can get that today at joel-real-timing.com. Benefield will lead them back to green. We'll get it on lap 118. As Rhyme Time has invaded LSRTV coverage. But Benefield, Comstock, Ward, Shed, Jones, Rapolo, Marinac, Vincent, Evans, Michael Waters, your top 10. Here we go. Last restart. Benefield gets an incredible jump again. Comstock drops to the bottom this time. Going to clear everybody. Meanwhile, Michael 3 wide into turn 1 behind him. Here comes Dylan Jones down the inside of Jeff Ward, who did not get a good restart. Might get Carl Shed as he comes into 1 and out of 2.
What a move there by the 11. He knows that it's go time. He had a potential chance to win this race, and he thought it may have slipped through his fingertips, but now the 89 and Jeff Ward fights back into corner number 3. What's it going to be? Who's going to be in 5th spot as they come off corner number 4 and come across the stripe? Looks like it's going to be the 11 and Dylan C. Jones trying to recover from that half spin off of pit road. 83 of Adam Benefield gets himself a 2.5 second advantage and a 1.
I think Shed caught the wall on the exit of 2, and Jones got trapped behind him, and that gave Ward the chance to get down the inside of Jones. Jones, with the faster car, was able to make it up on the outside, but that's one less lap that Jones has to get not just past Jeffrey Ward, but past Carl Shed, past Comstock, and get to fighting Benefield. He's got the pace, I think, to fight Benefield, but he's running out of time. 5 laps to go this time by.
5 laps in the 40 of David Comstock went way down against the grass through the tri-oval here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Also important to note, that 40 car behind Adam Benefield has been quicker the last couple laps, and that gap just keeps closing and closing every single time by. 40 of David Comstock looked at some point like he may have been out of this about 30 to 40 laps ago, but now they come off of corner number 3 and 4, getting ready to get the 5 to go signal, and he is in it for the win. 45 of Carl Shed close to the wall off of 4 once again.
Here we go, final 5 laps from Las Vegas, and they are just about nose to tail. Maybe a car length and a half, if that, between Benefield and Comstock. Shed's right there, and it's just about nose to bumper with him and his teammate Dylan Jones there in the 4th position. So all these guys trying to run these cars, hanging off, and a yellow flag comes out. 1 car on the wall in the back. That should just about do it and just about hand the wheel to Adam Benefield. Trouble in the back of the field brings out the yellow on lap 122.
Yeah, there's a big incident here coming off of corner number 2. This is a 32 of Shane Ewing. He just coming off of corner number 2. I think that car just got a little bit loose on him. Yes, it did. Spun hard down into the inside wall, and he T-boned that inside wall hard. Spat that car right back up onto the racetrack, and he caught the number 48 machine of Kevin Linden, and that sent both cars tumbling down the back straightaway.
Big trouble, and going to take more than a few Rayovac batteries, I think, to power the tools needed to clean up that 32 machine of Shane Ewing. So big trouble for him, and I think that just about will do it here for the most part. Going to be hard to get this race restarted under green with only 4 laps to go here now, Randy. Think this should be Adam Benefield's race to win if he can just come down and follow the pace car for a few more laps.
I think you're absolutely right. We might have hit a window, and we might get a 1-lap restart, but I think that that's pretty much going to end it. It's going to be close. We're going to have to wait a couple laps.
Gonna watch and see what happens here with the pace car. Don't know if we're going to get an answer here just about, but we shall see. But if it is Benefield that comes through and wins this, you know, got to give him credit. He's been the strongest man in this field the whole day, led the most laps, all sorts of accolades and stats we can give, but don't really need to cut it up any crazier than that. 83 has been class of the field.
Yeah, so, I mean, now it's just a matter of waiting to see. We don't actually know if the drivers have gotten that 2 to go signal just yet. And actually, no, we do know as Cisco gets a hold of one of our LSR gentlemen. That's Mr. Austin Coop, who's not had the greatest of nights tonight, but he got a hold of him. Race is scored complete. 83 of Adam Benefield is your race winner.
Well, not quite. They will have to come
not
around
quite.
and finish off the 2 laps. Race is
If he
not
doesn't,
complete.
if he doesn't make it to the line, then I'm putting it all on green.
Well, stranger things have happened here, so we'll see. Could end up trying to pull a Mark Martin at Bristol in 1990 and just decide, hey, I'll pull him with a lap to go. I don't need this win. It doesn't matter now, does it?
Well, hopefully everyone's already seen that happen. So if someone makes the same mistake, that is pretty fun. He's running close to that at pit entry, which is making me worry, though.
Making you a little bit nervous, Randy?
Yeah, just a little bit. But I'm
Just
easily flustered.
That's fair. Okay. I can't blame you for that. But, yeah, so Benefield here will come to run lap 124. So there's your 2 to go officially, I suppose. And if this holds, it's Benefield. Comstock, who just had a miserable first green flag run and then rebounded very nicely, should be in line for second. Carl Shedd, I think, has been P2 or P3 the entire race, it seems like. Will come home with the 3rd spot. Dylan Jones, what an impressive run for him to get back after he looped it around on the exit of turn 2 after completing his first pit stop of the night. Had to hustle it back and is going to come away with a top 5, so that'll be a nice points run for him. Jeff Ward, another strong run, another top 10 for him. Definitely will take that, I think. Trevor Roppolo going to back it up and keep a hold there at the top of the standings. He'll be near it at least. Don't know if he'll be the points leader after tonight, but should come home 6th. Dwayne Vincent comes just about out of nowhere to 7th. Didn't really mention him much at all today, but is right there. Stefan Marinak in that flash car will get 8th when this all holds. Greg Evans needs no duct tape to get himself the 9th place finish. That is about as clean a car as you're going to see. And then the Coast Guard car, Michael Waters, big top 5, or top 10 rather, for him if this holds. Should finish in the 10th spot. So a lot of good stories up and down this top 10 here, Randy.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stories up and down the field. Throughout this entirety of the race, you look through your top 5, and there's 5 different, I think, strategy calls that got made amongst there, and that doesn't even end the stories that you had. You had the 44, Brandon Bowie was another potential name that we saw could have been very competitive in this race. Unfortunately for him, bad strategy call takes him out of contention. He'll finish outside of the top 10 as we have now under a mile and a half to go before we can get the tires burning for the 83, get the interviews done, and get down to the strip and make some bad decisions.
Bad decisions aren't necessarily the good thing, though. I do enjoy me a few casino games every once in a while. It's fun. It's fun, and going to a casino is a fun time just to see everything.
It's just to look at all the bright lights and listen to all the dinky noises, and then all the restaurants you can't afford.
Oh, the restaurants you can't afford are the best bits.
And we can go to Evan's house. That's a good point. Cisco makes a good argument.
A valid point there. This is also the home of our CEO, Mr. Evan Pasoko. So go over and run to the Running Rebels campus and go hang out at UNLV. So a lot of things that we'll be doing here post-race. But matter at hand, though, is that we have to give a call to the 83 of Adam Benefield, who nearly ran down Dylan Jones last weekend in Atlanta. Needed about 1 or 2 more laps to make it happen. This time, though, he won't need those 1 or 2 more laps because he's got the lead and he'll bring it home. Adam Benefield crosses the start finish line and wins the 3rd round of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking at Las Vegas. David Comstock finishes 2nd, Carl Shedd 3rd, Dylan Jones 4th, and Jeff Ward rounds out your top 5.
What a good run this was tonight. I think I'm a little bummed that it had to finish under yellow flag because I think we were getting ready to see a great 3 to 4 car scrap for the win here. But still, for Adam Benefield, he was really the dominant car all night, got himself out front, and when he did, he pretty much ran away from everyone, had the right strategy, and fortunately for him, he's probably happy it ended under yellow, a little less stressful, but still, regardless, a great run for the 83.
83 is going to burn it down, and we are going to take a commercial break here and then come back and interview your top 3 finishers. This is coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
So cool, yeah. Nate, what are you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on the animation for the game. We're working on getting pit crews fully developed, and that involves a lot of moving parts. So I'm going in and making sure that each moving part can dovetail smoothly into the next one, so that when you pull in for a pit stop, it looks like the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of jumbled pieces that suddenly stop and then go and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool, but why aren't you working on the time model? Nothing?
And welcome back to our coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, live from Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a winner tonight. Adam Benefield claims the third race of the 2017 season. And we're going to go ahead and give you your full field rundown to tell you where your favorite driver finished tonight. Benefield gets the win. David Comstock brings it home in second position. Carl Shedd, the first of the Aegis Motorsports boys, brings it home third. Dylan Jones recovered from a spin early on in the race to bring it home fourth. Jeff Ward finishes in the fifth position this evening. Trevor Roppolo finishes sixth. Dwayne Vincent comes home in seventh. Stefan Marinac finishes eighth. Greg Evans will come home ninth. And Michael Waters is your 10th place finisher tonight.
In 11th, we have Nelson Rivera. 12th, we have Brandon Bowie, somebody who had a chance to get himself that win, but just took himself out of contention just before those yellow flags flew. AJ Browning in 13th. 14th, we have Scott Stenzel. 15th, Nick Silver. Stephanie Lacente in 16th. 17th, Sean Casto. Thomas George, 18th. 19th, Jose Gonzalez. Rounding out your top 20, Steve Goschalk.
David Washington finishes in the 21st position. Galen Goodman comes home 22nd. Ashton Crowder finishes 23rd. Ross Cato 24th. Scott Simley comes home in 25th. Sean Boundy finishes 26th. Austin Coop finishes 27th. Bobby Wetzel 28th. Joseph Tice 29th. Last car on the lead lap, John Abbott, was first car 2 laps down. Actually, no cars 1 lap down tonight, but Abbott finishes 30th.
Rounding out your field this evening, Corbin Hemstreet in 31st. 32nd, we have CJ LeVere. 33rd, Shane Ewing. Douglas Wyatt, 34th. 35th, Doug Roth. Kyle Tarsaka, 36th. 37th, Jeffrey Ford. Kevin Linden, 38th. 39th, Lionel Castillo. 40th, Glenn Campbell. 41st, Jason Lester. 42nd, Seth Foudy. And rounding out the field tonight, Eric Arnold in 43rd.
That is your full field rundown, which is brought to you tonight by iRacing. And for more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. When you register for a new iRacing membership, you get 13 cars and 14 tracks that come included with a first-time subscription. So, busy race tonight, Randy, but at the end of the day, it's Adam Benefield that takes home the checkered flag.
And what a run it was for him tonight. Dominant car all evening. He got the strategy right. He got the setup right. I don't think anyone really deserved to win it. And now, James, you're stood by with him, who was brought to the booth a little too early, it sounded like.
I'd say Adam Benefield was so excited to talk to us that he just jumped on the mic and was already ready to go before we even got to him. But Adam, coming home with the victory tonight, how on earth did you get that thing so hooked up on the long green flag runs? There was no one that could touch you tonight once we got about 10 or 20 laps into a run.
Honest to God, I really don't know. And sorry for being on the mic. We were kind of talking down there, us three, about the race. But no, long runs have always been my thing, and it paid off again tonight. I think that the biggest thing that was helping me was the line that I was running through 1 and 2. I was kind of using, the car was tight, and everybody would try to go in there and kind of dime in the corner a little bit. And I was just using the bumps, and it was actually helping the car turn, which is weird, but it worked out. It helped us. We had a really fast car. It's the wrong car. I don't know why I had the Chevrolet with racing awareness on the side picked, but it put me in a Ford tonight, so I didn't get to represent them tonight, but I'm sorry for that.
Does this win come a little bit sweeter, especially when you consider last week's race where you had the fastest car at the end and needed about 1 or 2 laps to get it done tonight? Is that anything big to you?
Yeah, I mean it's sweeter. It's really sweet because I don't know if y'all know this, but I got lucky tonight because in qualifying and go or go home qualifying, I messed up really bad in 3 and 4, and I qualified 12th, and they only took 11 cars out of there. So I got lucky and someone didn't show up, and that's how I was able to make it into the field tonight. So, but yeah, that's that's really sweet how was able to put it together and bring home the win. Especially the way we did. I really didn't want to see that last or the yellow to end the long run right there. Um, I felt like we had it in the bag right there for sure, and then we all pitted and come back out. You guys, y'all been doing these races for RSR for a couple of years now, and I'm sure we can go back and look in the history and know that look back at some of the races that's come down between me and David. So I was like, anybody besides David could restart second, and lo and behold, David restarts second. So I knew I was going to have to twist the guts out of it to keep him behind me. So but no, man, it was great. It was fun.
All right, we've been making terrible gambling references and whatnot up here in the booth all night because it's Vegas, but that's got to be the most Vegas story in a Las Vegas race I've heard. That you luck into the field just because someone didn't show up on the server, and then all of a sudden here you are in victory lane at the end of the thing. That's almost too good to be true.
Dude, it's crazy. I was sitting there like blowing up Abbott. Hey, man, you sure? What about provisionals? Don't I have enough starts to get the provisional spot? And I didn't. So you know, lucky me. I guess I should go to Vegas and throw down some bets. But lucky me, I was able to get into the show. And what's bad is like we got into the show and was still able to qualify, and we laid down a 69, which would easily made it into the show. It's just I slipped a little bit in 3 and 4, and it killed the lap time. It just that shows how stiff this competition is over here, man. I was here, a couple of years ago, and it was, still strong guys here. We were solid every week, winning races, finishing in the top 3. And now, I mean, one little bobble and a go or go home qualifying, and you're outside looking in, praying to God that someone don't show up.
Well, before you take that money, or maybe after you take that money to the casino, I know there are a lot of folks that come in and help give you some and make this all possible for you, Adam. So, who do you need to thank for making your victory happen tonight?
Yeah, SHR, thanks to them for peeling all the Dan Murray stickers off the side of the car and letting me run his Ford tonight. Racing awareness, that's a big thing that Mr. Joey Gattina is doing. I'm sorry, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so sorry I didn't come in the right car tonight, but y'all check out his campaign, and he's partnered up with Mission 22, and they're doing great things over there to really help suicide victim families over there, and all that good stuff. Y'all come, anybody from Alabama that's in the Birmingham area or outside, they're having an event this Saturday at Autobahn. I'm not too sure on the times. I'll get with him and find out what the times are. And Roll Speed Dynamics, they're not on the car, but they sponsor me. And let's see who else. APC for letting me come over here and race. John Abbott. You guys at LSRTV for broadcasting this, and y'all are always a good group to talk to and fun, and I really enjoy going back and watching y'all's broadcast.
We thank you for your support of our coverage, and definitely will echo that sentiment with Joey Gattina and racing awareness. If you feel like that, you're never alone. There are always people that are willing to talk. Just make sure you reach out and talk to someone, because you never are alone, period. So, Adam, thank you for promotion of the cause, and congrats on the victory tonight. We'll see you next week.
Oh, well, I'll be off 2 weeks. I'm part-time schedule, so I got to go back to being daddy for the next 2 Monday nights. So, hopefully I'll be back here in the next few weeks, though.
We'll see you on the broadcast chat next week. How about that? That works a little bit well. But
yeah, I'll be there.
In the meantime, congrats, and we'll let Adam go ahead and run off, and we'll bring in the man who finished second tonight, David Comstock, or maybe David last name if his windshield is any indication, but he should be with our own Randy Chetta.
Indeed, he is. I'm stood by with the 40 of David Comstock. And David, you look strong all night. You fell back in the field a little bit at one point, managed to work yourself back forward. First question I have, though, if that yellow didn't come out, do you think you had anything for the 83?
No, I didn't think we had anything. There was too much of a gap, and we were on the same strategy, and there was too much traffic. I think if he had been held up by the lappers, maybe a little bit more, that maybe I might have had a shot, but no, there was no way I could have got to him with how even we were all run.
I was talking about the yellow that came out with like 5 to go that ended the race.
Oh, that one. Well, I mean, we did all we could. We were battling as hard as we could to try to get to him, and we got right behind about a couple car lengths and just kind of hit a wall of where I couldn't turn. I just got tight and just did all I could, and it was a heck of a run coming back from all the strategies that we had. So it was a good race nonetheless.
Talking about all those strategies, I mean, we saw, at one point, I think we saw basically everyone in the top 5 was doing something a little bit different. We saw the 44 Brandon Bowie, who was basically undercutting everyone every single stint. We saw Adam, who was going long every run, and then some people going in between. What is it about this racetrack that was making it so that there was that many different strategies happening in that long green flag period?
Just the way the setup and these tires, how they were falling off, we were getting tight, really, really tight, depending on how you ran the car. If you got overzealous with your run, you could burn the right front off and start plowing, and then you feel like you need to get to pit road to get some new tires to try to help progress your advantage there with that. But we were committed to doing about 40 laps to end out the rest of the race. And we had, I think we pitted about 80 to go, somewhere around there, and then we were committed to just do 2 stops to end out the race. I had it gone green.
Now, overall, over the course of this championship, the Aegis cars have been pretty strong in the opening couple rounds. Were you expecting them to be a little bit stronger tonight? One of them got the pole of Trevor Rapolo, but they sort of fell back a bit in the run. Were you expecting them to continue their dominance, or did you think they might fall back?
I actually haven't been really aware of who's been on what teams. I mean, I see every car is someone, it's anybody that I'm battling against. That's just another car I got to go try to beat after. So, I don't know. I guess who was it that got the pole tonight? Trevor. I guess if he's a part of Asia, I really don't know. But yeah, we just go out there, we race, and we try to go for the win. And if not, we try to just get the best position we can. And tonight, second was the best we can get. We're happy with that.
Well, thanks for joining us this evening, David. Congratulations on the strong second place finish this evening. Before we let you go, any shout-outs, anyone you'd like to thank?
Absolutely. We'd like to thank everybody back at Aftermath Motorsports for letting me come on over and do this. We running here with Real Sim Racing and Live Sim Racing TV for broadcasting every single week. Sponsors on the car, Gary Mercer Trucking, JT Plax Plus, Monster Energy, JD Laird for JDR Graphics to paint my car every single week, Hick and Jix, EJ Brakes, Finish Line Racing, first time racing with them this year. They asked me to join the team a couple weeks ago. We met up at Daytona, so we've been running with them here just at the start, and now I'm officially on that team. I know I'm on that team, so yeah, thanks to those guys for opening the door and letting me come over with them.
Well, thanks for joining us again. Congratulations on the strong second place run, David. Good luck next week out at Phoenix.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.
James, I'm going to throw it back to you. I believe you're stood by with the 45 of Carl Shed.
That would be correct, Randy. I do have the 45 of Carl Shed up here with me, and Carl comes away with third place this evening at Las Vegas. And Carl, I think this just felt like another case, maybe a little bit of a lesser case tonight, but still a strong case of everybody at Aegis Motorsports just working so well together. What on earth has got you guys so well bunched up at the front of these fields week after week after week?
Yeah, we got great team chemistry. We've been running together a long time, and it's just something that you build with when you've been around other individuals and raced them for so long. We've got a good balance of personalities, and good mentors with Dave and Dylan, kind of showing us younger guys in here the ropes. So I think that's really the key there. Is just our chemistry is really solid.
You guys have been strong all season long, and you've been strong the past few weeks here. Coming up now to, I believe, 10th in the point standings after tonight. So just talk a little bit about your run tonight. I know you had a top 5 car, I think, for the majority of the race, if not all of it. You were in the top 5, it felt like, just about all of it. And how about the racing there right before that last race of cautions with Jeff Ward, going side by side through the turns and the straights? How much fun was that to be behind the wheel of your car?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks to Jeff for putting up with me there. We were in a bad situation. We'd been running so well all night. The car was so solid, and I guess when we during one of the pit situations, I wanted to make sure I was wasting no extra time in the pits, was putting exactly the amount of fuel I needed in the car, and didn't think to go back and look at that again. So when we got to those green flag stops, we realized we were going to stay out for 40. My spotter comes over the radio and says, we're pitting in 2 laps, and I'm thinking, man, I'm 12 laps before my window. So I was a little disappointed there. I said, well, I guess we'll make the best of it now, because we're pretty much out of the window. I knew that Adam would be coming to get us, and David and Trevor and Dylan, the rest of those guys. So I was just trying to hold on, trying to not make it too easy for Jeff. I knew he had fresher tires, and he had places to go. So he was probably getting frustrated with me, but I appreciate him racing me clean. We had a good time, and I think it was 5 or 6 laps side by side there. It was good stuff. It was a lot of fun.
I can tell you from up here in the broadcast booth, we enjoyed that battle thoroughly. So, before we let you go, I'll take a moment here to give you the chance to give your shout-outs, your thank yous, your recognitions. Who do you want to take a moment to thank for making tonight's run possible?
Yeah, thanks to the good guys at RSR for putting on such a solid league with the competition they have. It's very hard to find a league with this caliber of people who race that cleanly with one another. We all have our moments that we would, but nonetheless, it's very consistent. I would like to thank my teammates at Aegis, Trevor, Joseph, David, and Dylan, and Andy Kessler and James Ross. Those guys are fantastic and a lot of fun to be around on a weekly basis. And our estranged teammate Ross Cato, a good man. And thank you guys for putting on a solid show at LSRTV. It's a lot of fun to go back the next day and kind of catch up on everything that went on around me that I couldn't see from my cockpit.
Happy to bring it to you, Carl. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us, and we'll see you next week in Phoenix.
Yes, sir. We'll see you guys there. Have a good night.
So that's Carl Shedd, who comes home third tonight, and I just mentioned it. I'll mention it again. We're still in the desert next Monday night, but just a little bit further south, and with a few more cactuses and a few less playing cards. We'll be down at that tricky triangle, mini triangle in Avondale, Arizona. Phoenix International Raceway, our next stop, should be a fun and entertaining race down there, because that's just such a creative track, and you can run so many different runs and run that so many different ways, Randy. It offers up a lot of opportunities for drivers, more so than at most racetracks we visit.
Yeah, Phoenix is a really fun racetrack to run, especially with the repave and the way the dog leg works itself out. I mean, tonight you'd be tight making yourself 2 to even 3 wide in some places. Go to Phoenix through the dog leg, you basically have about 37 car widths you can work with through that corner number 2.
But that will be next Monday night for the second leg of 3 in RealSimRacing.com and LSRTV Go West. Tonight we are just about done here, though. Going to take a moment, though, to remind you that tonight's coverage has been brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top-quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. So a few of their paints tonight out there in the field, and you'll see a few of them next week when we head to the Valley of the Sun, Phoenix International Raceway. But that will conclude our coverage tonight for the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series from Las Vegas Motor Speedway on LSRTV. For my colleague in the booth, Mr. Randy Chenna, thank you for coming over from RacePop to help us out tonight. To our producer, Mr. Cisco Scaramouza, thanks for punching all those buttons in the booth, and looking forward to seeing your Butler Bulldogs play in the tournament in a few days' time. But for all of our admins at Real Sim Racing, John Abbott, Andy Kessler, Chad Cole, for Evan Pasoko and Laura Lawson at LSRTV. I am James Pike saying thank you for watching tonight's broadcast, and we will see you in 1 week's time from Phoenix.